It happened in an instant. The teacher, writing on the board, dropped the chalk. The windows rattled. The desks shook. Earthquake. Someone screamed, but their voice was lost in the chaos. Screams filled the air. Children ducked in panic. The ceiling groaned. Pieces of plaster rained down. The teacher shouted, "Get under the desks." But it was too late. A massive piece of the ceiling collapsed in the middle of the classroom. Everything vanished into dust and darkness. The shaking had stopped, but the fear remained. Small children huddled under their desks, their eyes filled with tears. "Teacher, can we get out?" One whispered, his voice trembling. The teacher turned on the flashlight, scanning the room. The ceiling had collapsed. Doors were jammed. The only way out was now blocked by rubble. "Don't be afraid," the teacher reassured. "They will find us. Just stay calm." But time was running out, and the sounds from inside the building warned that the danger was far from over. The children's frightened eyes glowed through the thick dust. Their teacher, hiding her own fear, tried to keep them calm, but suddenly a desperate scream echoed. "Help me. I'm stuck." A child was trapped under a collapsed bookshelf and rubble. The teacher rushed over, frantically trying to remove the debris. But with every movement, more dust and stones threatened to fall. "Don't move," she shouted. "We'll get you out of there." But every second counted, and no one outside even knew they were still alive. In the dark and dusty room, the children's breathing was audible. Suddenly, distant sounds of metal clanging and human shouts were heard. The teacher lifted her head and listened intently. "Do you hear that? Someone's there," she said excitedly. The children looked around with hope. "Help us. We're here," the teacher shouted, her voice cracking, but with all her strength. The external noises paused for a moment, then grew closer. "Stay calm. We're getting you out." A voice echoed at that moment. A ray of hope emerged in the darkness. The classroom, now filled with dust and darkness, echoed with the soft cries of terrified children. The teacher struggled to reach the child trapped under the fallen bookshelf. The flickering flashlight barely illuminated their dust-covered faces. "Hold on. We'll get you out of here," the teacher whispered, though fear trembled in her voice. In the distance, the wailing of sirens ignited a spark of hope, but above them, the cracked ceiling threatened to collapse at any moment. There could still be survivors under the rubble. When the firefighters stepped inside the building, smoke and dust made it almost impossible to see. Collapsed walls, cracked columns. The whole place could collapse at any moment. A sound. Faint but clear, the firefighter raised his flashlight. Under a broken table and piles of concrete, there was a child. A small body barely breathing, but alive. The firefighter reached for his radio. "We found the missing child. Critical condition, but still alive." But time was running out. The building was still shaking. The firefighter shone his flashlight into the darkness of the rubble. A motionless silhouette appeared. He held his breath. "Can you hear me?" he shouted. There was a faint stir. The child responded with a weak voice. "I'm here." The firefighter rushed forward. The child's teacher was beside him, slightly injured but conscious. "All right, we're getting you out of here, but we need to be careful. The rubble could collapse at any moment." The child asked fearfully, "Is it safe outside?" The firefighter narrowed his eyes. From outside, screams and sirens echoed. "We'll do our best, okay?" The walls trembled, and the ceiling creaked dangerously. Firefighters rushed to clear the last few survivors. Knowing time was running out, the trapped children held onto the rescuers with teary eyes, their small hands gripping tightly. One firefighter carried a young boy. Shielding him from falling debris, a mother ran desperately behind, calling for her child. The collapsed building groaned one last time. There was no time left. "We have to move now," shouted the lead firefighter with a final sprint. They all burst through the exit as the building behind them collapsed in a cloud of dust and smoke. They had made it. But the scars of this tragedy would never fade. The walls trembled, and the ceiling creaked dangerously. Firefighters rushed to clear the last few survivors. Knowing time was running out, the trapped children held onto the rescuers with teary eyes, their small hands gripping tightly. One firefighter carried a young boy. Shielding him from falling debris, a mother ran desperately behind, calling for her child.